My name is Elara Moonvale, and I'm 23 years old. 23 years of breathing, living, existing in a world that decided my fate before I ever had a chance to choose it for myself. What I'm about to tell you isn't some fairy tale about destined love or the magic of finding your soulmate. No, this is a story about betrayal, not just by others, but by fate itself. This is about power that corrupts, bonds that enslave, and the crushing weight of a destiny I never asked for. This is about pain. This is about anger. This is about fighting against something so much larger than myself that the very act of resistance feels like drowning. And maybe I did drown. Maybe I'm still drowning. You need to understand something before I go any further. The Luna ceremony isn't what they tell you it is. They dress it up in silk and moonlight, call it sacred, call it beautiful. They say it's an honor to be chosen, a blessing to be bound to the Alpha King. But what they don't tell you, what they conveniently forget to mention, is that it's a cage. A golden, shimmering cage that locks around your throat the moment that bond snaps into place, and once it does, you're done. You're his. Not in the romantic way the stories suggest, but in the way property belongs to an owner. In the way a tool belongs to the hand that wields it. I knew this. I'd known it my entire life. I'd watched it happen to others, seen the light fade from their eyes as they accepted their blessed fate. I'd seen strong women become shadows, their voices growing quieter with each passing year until they were nothing more than ornamental figures standing beside men who held all the real power. And I swore on everything I held sacred, that it would never be me. Never. But fate doesn't care about your oaths. Fate doesn't give a damn about what you want or what you've sworn. Fate is cruel and indifferent, and it will break you just to prove it can. The night of the ceremony, the air was thick enough to choke on. It wasn't just humidity or the smoke from the ceremonial fires burning in the stone circle. It was expectation, heavy and suffocating, pressing down on all of us gathered there. The forest clearing had been prepared for days, every detail attended to with meticulous care. Flowers, white lilies and silver roses, were woven into garlands that hung between ancient stone pillars carved with symbols so old nobody living could read them anymore. The fires burned in brass bowls placed at the 4 cardinal points, their flames dancing and writhing like living things hungry for sacrifice. And in the center of it all stood the Alpha King. I'd seen him before, of course. Everyone had. You couldn't live in the Pack territories and not know what Dante Silvercrest looked like. He was impossible to miss, 6.5 feet of raw power and ancient authority wrapped in human skin. His presence alone could silence a room, could make grown warriors drop their gazes and bow their heads. He was beautiful in the way a sword is beautiful, all sharp edges and lethal grace. Dark hair that fell just past his shoulders, golden eyes that seemed to see straight through whatever mask you wore, a face that could have been carved from marble by some artist obsessed with perfect, terrible beauty. But beauty means nothing when it's attached to a prison sentence. The Pack members gathered in concentric circles around the ceremony space, their faces solemn in the firelight. They believed in this. They actually believed that what was about to happen was holy, was right, was necessary for the good of the Pack. And maybe for them it was. Maybe they needed this ritual, needed to believe that their leader was chosen not just by strength or politics, but by something greater, something mystical and beyond question. Maybe it made them feel secure to think that fate itself had ordained their ruler. But I didn't need that security. I didn't want it. What I wanted was freedom, autonomy, the right to choose my own path even if that path led nowhere anyone else thought important. I wanted my life to be mine, not a footnote in someone else's story, not a supporting role in the grand narrative of the Alpha King's reign. My heart was hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat, could taste copper and fear on my tongue. I stood among the other candidates, 12 of us in total, all young women deemed suitable for the position of Luna. Suitable. As if we were pieces of furniture being evaluated for a room. As if our entire worth could be measured by bloodline and bearing and our ability to look appropriately reverent while surrendering our entire existence to a man we didn't choose. The ceremony began with the eldest Pack members reciting the old words, prayers in a language that predated modern speech. Their voices rose and fell in rhythmic chanting that should have been soothing, but instead felt like a countdown to my execution. Each candidate would approach the Alpha King in turn, would meet his eyes and extend their hand. If the bond was there, if fate had decreed them compatible, power would arc between them like lightning, visible to everyone watching. The Luna mark would appear on both their skin, an intricate pattern of silver lines that would brand them as bound for life. If the bond wasn't there, nothing happened. The girl would step back, humiliated but free, and the next would try. One by one, they went forward. Marina Deepwood, beautiful and ambitious, with her honey-colored hair elaborately braided and woven with silver thread. She approached with confidence, her chin high, absolutely certain she would be chosen. When she met the Alpha King's eyes and nothing happened, the shock on her face would have been funny if the whole situation weren't so horrible. She stumbled back, her confidence shattered, and I felt a vicious spike of satisfaction that I immediately hated myself for feeling. Celeste Nightshade went next, then Rowena Thornheart, then Iris Moonbrook. Each one hoping, each one failing. With every rejection, I felt the noose tightening around my own neck because the odds were narrowing, the probability increasing that when my turn came, something terrible would happen. I had a plan. Of course I had a plan. I'd spent months preparing for this moment, researching everything I could find about the mating bond, about how it formed and what could prevent it. I'd learned meditation techniques to control my thoughts and emotions, practiced building mental walls so thick that nothing could penetrate them. I'd consulted with a witch on the edge of pack territory, a risky move that could have gotten me killed if anyone found out, and she'd given me herbs to dull my supernatural senses, to make it harder for the bond to find purchase in my soul. I'd done everything possible to ensure that when I stood before Dante Silvercrest, absolutely nothing would happen. But as I watched girl after girl fail to spark that connection, as I felt his presence growing stronger in my awareness like a storm approaching over dark water, doubt began creeping in. What if my preparations weren't enough? What if fate was stronger than willpower, stronger than herbs and meditation and sheer stubborn refusal? What if I'd been lying to myself this whole time about having any choice at all? Elara Moonvale. My name, spoken by the ceremony elder, cut through my spiraling thoughts like a blade. This was it. This was the moment I'd been dreading and preparing for. Every eye in the clearing turned toward me, hundreds of pack members, watching with barely concealed eagerness to see if their future Luna would finally be revealed. I wanted to run. Gods, how I wanted to run. To shift and let my wolf take over, to sprint into the forest and never look back, to disappear so completely that not even fate could find me. But running would solve nothing. They would hunt me down, drag me back, and I'd face this moment anyway, but with even less dignity, even less power over my own circumstances. So I stepped forward. The walk from my position in the outer circle to the center where the Alpha King waited felt infinite. My legs moved mechanically, one foot in front of the other, while my mind raced through every meditation technique I'd learned, every mental exercise designed to shut down emotional response. I built my walls higher, reinforced them with steel and stone and pure desperate determination. I would not let this happen. I would not become another name on the list of women who'd surrendered their autonomy for the supposed honor of standing beside power. And then I was there, standing before him, and the world narrowed to just the two of us. Up close, Dante Silvercrest was even more overwhelming than from a distance. He radiated authority the way the sun radiates heat, constant, inescapable, fundamental to his very nature. Those golden eyes fixed on me with an intensity that made my carefully constructed mental walls shudder. For a moment, just a heartbeat, I saw something flicker across his face. Surprise? Recognition? But it was gone so quickly I might have imagined it. Step forward, he commanded, his voice deep and resonant, carrying effortlessly across the silent clearing. I did, hating how my body obeyed before my mind could process the decision. Hating how some part of me, some small, traitorous part one couldn't quite suppress, wanted to obey, wanted to please him, wanted to fall into the orbit of his power and let it consume me. He extended his hand, palm up. This was it. This was the moment of truth. I had to touch him, That was part of the ritual, non-negotiable. But I could control what happened when skin met skin. I could maintain my walls, could refuse to let any connection form, could deny fate itself through sheer force of will. I placed my hand in his. The effect was instantaneous and catastrophic. It wasn't lightning or visible power or any of the dramatic displays I'd witnessed in other bond formations. It was worse. It was internal, a detonation inside my chest that sent shockwaves through every cell of my body. My carefully constructed walls didn't just crack, they exploded, obliterated like they'd never existed at all. And in the space where they'd stood, something else rushed in. Something vast and terrifying and utterly inexorable. The bond. I felt him. Not just his hand in mine, but him, his presence flooding into the empty spaces of my soul like water finding every crack and crevice. His strength, his will, his absolute certainty of his own authority. But underneath that, and this was what broke me, what made tears spring to my eyes even as I fought to maintain my composure, I felt his loneliness. His burden. The crushing weight of responsibility he'd carried for so long that he'd forgotten what it felt like to stand without it. And I knew, with horrible certainty, that he felt me too. All of me. The anger I'd been nurturing for years, the fear beneath the defiance, the desperate hunger for freedom that defined my every waking moment. He felt it all, and in his eyes I saw understanding dawn, saw recognition, and something that might have been triumph. No, this couldn't be happening. This wasn't supposed to happen. I tried to pull my hand back, but his fingers tightened around mine, not painfully, but firmly enough to prevent withdrawal. "Don't," he said quietly, so quietly that only I could hear. "Don't fight it. Don't fight it? Don't fight it?" Rage erupted inside me, white-hot and purifying. How dare he? How dare he tell me not to fight against the single most fundamental violation of my autonomy? How dare he assume I would simply accept this, would fold myself neatly into the role fate had carved out without my consent? I jerked my hand away with enough force that I stumbled backward, nearly losing my balance. The bond, that horrifying, invasive thing that had wrapped itself around my core, stretched between us like a rubber band pulled taut. It hurt. Physically hurt, an aching emptiness where his presence had been flooding me just seconds before. And that made me even angrier because now my own body was betraying me, was insisting that proximity to him was necessary, was right, was natural. Nothing about this was natural. This was slavery dressed up in mystical language. The gathered pack erupted into murmurs, confusion rippling through the crowd. A bond had clearly formed, everyone had seen the moment of connection, had witnessed the power that arced between us, but I was rejecting it. Publicly. Violently. This wasn't how the ceremony was supposed to go. The chosen Luna was meant to accept gracefully, to bow her head in gratitude for the honor bestowed upon her. I did not bow. Dante's expression had gone carefully neutral, but I could see the muscle ticking in his jaw, could practically feel his irritation through the bond that refused to fully snap even as I tried to sever it through pure hatred. "The ceremony is complete," he announced to the assembled pack, his voice carrying absolute authority. "Elara Moonvale is my mate. My Luna." "No." The word burst from my lips before I could stop it, raw and defiant. "No, I'm not. I refuse. I reject this bond. I reject you." Gasps echoed through the clearing. What I just said wasn't merely shocking, it was heresy. No one rejected the Alpha King. No one refused a mate bond, especially not one confirmed in front of the entire pack during the sacred Luna ceremony. I might as well have spat on their gods and burned their temples. But I didn't care. Let them be shocked. Let them be horrified. I would not be broken on the altar of their traditions. Dante's eyes narrowed dangerously. "You're upset," he said, and I wanted to laugh at the understatement, wanted to scream at the condescension in his tone. "We'll discuss this privately." "There's nothing to discuss. I'm leaving." I turned and started walking, pushing through the stunned crowd. Pack members stumbled out of my way, their faces showing various shades of disbelief, anger, and pity. Behind me, I heard Dante's growl, a sound that reverberated through the bond and made my wolf whimper in distress. She wanted to go back. My wolf, the beast that shared my soul, wanted to submit to our alpha, wanted to accept the bond and everything it represented. Traitor. I made it to the forest edge before his hand closed around my wrist. How he'd moved so quickly through the crowd I didn't know and didn't care. Let go of me, I snarled, trying to wrench free. Not until you listen. I don't want to listen. I don't want any of this. I made myself perfectly clear. I reject the bond. I reject you, and if there's some magical way to sever this thing completely, I'll find it, and I'll use it, and I'll spend the rest of my life as far from you and this pack as I can possibly get. His grip didn't loosen, but his expression shifted into something I couldn't quite read. You felt it, he said quietly. Don't pretend you didn't. The connection is real, Elara. You can't just wish it away. Watch me. Why? The question was simple, but his tone was complex, genuine confusion, mixed with frustration, and something almost like hurt. Why are you fighting this so hard? The bond is a gift, a blessing that most wolves would. A gift? I laughed, harsh and bitter. You think this is a gift? Being bound to someone without choice, without consent, having your entire life path determined by biology and mysticism instead of your own free will? That's not a gift, Dante. That's a curse. That's a prison sentence. His jaw tightened. Being Luna isn't a prison. It's a position of honor, of power. Power. I interrupted, anger making my voice shake. What power? The power to stand next to you and look pretty? The power to smile and nod and support your decisions without ever making any of my own? I've seen what happens to Lunas. I've watched them transform from vibrant, independent women into decorative accessories. They have no real authority, no real agency. They're symbols, nothing more. And you want me to accept that? To be grateful for it? For a long moment, Dante just stared at me, those golden eyes searching my face like he was trying to solve an impossibly complex puzzle. Then, very slowly, he released my wrist. Is that really what you think? He asked, and there was something in his voice I hadn't expected. Sadness, maybe. Disappointment. That I would diminish you? Reduce you to a symbol? It doesn't matter what you would do, I shot back. It's what the position is. What the bond makes it. I lose myself either way. You're wrong. Am I? Then tell me, oh great Alpha King, how many decisions has your Luna made for the pack? How many times has her voice carried the same weight as yours in council? How many laws has she written? How many treaties has she negotiated? How many times has anyone looked at her as anything other than your pretty mate? His silence was answer enough. That's what I thought, I said bitterly. So forgive me if I'm not jumping for joy at the prospect of becoming the next woman to disappear into that role. I turned to leave again, but his voice stopped me. My mother was Luna for 37 years. I froze. He never talked about his mother, about his family history. Everyone knew his parents were dead, killed in the territorial wars 2 decades ago, but the details were closely guarded secrets. She wasn't what you describe. She was strong, decisive, her own person until the very end. She made decisions that shaped pack policy, influenced treaties, commanded respect from every wolf in our territory. She was my father's equal in every way that mattered. That's one story, I said without turning around. I can tell you a dozen others that ended differently. Then maybe the problem isn't the bond, Dante countered. Maybe the problem is the men who fail to recognize their mates as partners instead of possessions. I did turn then, studying his face for any sign of deception or manipulation. But he looked sincere, looked like he actually believed what he was saying. And that almost made it worse, because believing and doing are 2 very different things. Pretty words, I said eventually. But words are cheap. And even if you mean them now, even if you genuinely intend to treat me as an equal, the bond itself corrupts that intention. Because we're not equal, Dante. You're the Alpha King, chosen by blood and strength and ancient right. I'm just someone fate decided to pair you with. The power dynamic is already skewed beyond any hope of balance. You're not just someone, he said, and there was heat in his voice now, an edge of frustration breaking through his carefully maintained control. You're my mate. Chosen by forces older and wiser than either of us. That means something. That means everything. It means I'm trapped. It means you're home. The word hit me like a physical blow. Home. Such a simple concept, one that I'd stopped believing in years ago. Home wasn't a place or a person, it was a fantasy, a lie we told ourselves to make the loneliness bearable. And here was Dante Silvercrest, most powerful wolf in our region, telling me that home was being bound to him, was surrendering my will to fate's decree, was accepting a future I never chose. I don't need a home, I whispered, hating how my voice cracked. I need freedom. They're not mutually exclusive. Yes, they are. For someone like me, they absolutely are. Dante closed the distance between us in 2 long strides. I should have stepped back, should have maintained space, but I was frozen, caught in the gravity of his presence and the bond that sang between us despite my every attempt to silence it. Someone like you, he repeated slowly. What does that mean, Elara? Who do you think you are that makes freedom and belonging incompatible? I'm someone who refuses to be owned, I said fiercely. Someone who would rather live alone and hungry than fat and caged. Someone who values choice above comfort, autonomy above security. And the bond, our bond, threatens all of that. His hand came up and I flinched, expecting. I don't know what. Anger, maybe. Force. But he just brushed his fingers along my jaw, the touch so gentle it made my chest ache. I'm not trying to own you, he said quietly. I'm trying to know you. There's a difference. Not from where I'm standing. Then maybe you're standing in the wrong place. The presumption in that statement, the absolute certainty that he was right and I was simply viewing things incorrectly, reignited my anger like gasoline on embers. I slapped his hand away and stepped back. Don't do that. Don't act like my resistance is just confusion or fear or some feminine hysteria that you need to patiently correct. I know exactly what I want and what I don't want. And I don't want this bond. I don't want to be your Luna. I don't want to spend my life in service to a role I never asked for. What do you want? Dante demanded, and now there was frustration bleeding into his voice, his own control starting to fray. If not this, then what? To spend your life alone? To deny the fundamental truth of what you are, what we are to each other. I want to matter on my own terms. The words exploded from me, years of suppressed rage and fear pouring out in a torrent I couldn't stop. I want my existence to mean something beyond who I'm attached to. I want to make choices that are mine, not dictated by biology or fate or ancient magic that doesn't care what I feel. I want to wake up in the morning and know that the day ahead is shaped by my will, not someone else's expectations. I want to fail or succeed based on my own merit, not because I'm the Alpha King's mate. I want to be seen as Elara, not as Luna. As a person, not a position. Is that really so impossible to understand? Dante stared at me, something shifting in his expression. For a moment, just a heartbeat, I thought I saw actual understanding there, maybe even regret. But then his features hardened again into that familiar mask of authority. You think being Luna means losing all of that, he said. You think accepting the bond means surrendering yourself. But you're wrong, Elara. You could be so much more than you imagine. Together, we could. There is no together. I interrupted. There's you, the Alpha King, and there's me, the woman forced to stand beside you. That's not partnership. That's not equality. That's just a prettier version of subjugation. I won't force you, Dante said, and the words sounded like they cost him something. I can't force the bond to complete if you truly resist it. But I'm asking you, begging you to give this a chance. To give us a chance. Not as Alpha and Luna, but as 2 people who fate thought belonged together. Fate doesn't know me, I said coldly. And neither do you. You know what you want me to be, what you need your Luna to be. But that's not who I am. Then tell me who you are. The request was so simple, so seemingly genuine, that for a moment I wavered. What if I was wrong? What if Dante really was different, really would treat me as an equal, really could offer partnership instead of ownership? What if I was throwing away something precious because of fear and pride? But then I remembered Marina Deepwood's disappointed face, remembered all the former Lunas who'd faded into backgrounds of their mates' lives, remembered the suffocating weight of expectation that had pressed down on me throughout the entire ceremony. And I knew that wanting something to be true didn't make it true. Hope was a luxury I couldn't afford. I'm someone who's leaving, I said finally. Tonight. I'll be gone before dawn and you won't find me. The bond will stretch, and eventually it'll break, and we'll both be free to live the lives we were meant to live separately. The bond doesn't break, Dante said, his voice dropping into something dark and dangerous. Distance weakens it, time dulls it, but it never completely severs. You'll feel me for the rest of your life, Elara. And I'll feel you. Every moment of pain, every flash of joy, every lonely night when you're lying in some strange place wondering if you made the right choice, I'll feel all of it. Is that what you want? For both of us to live half-lives, always aware of what we rejected. If that's the price of freedom, I'll pay it. His laugh was bitter, hollow. Freedom. You keep using that word like it's sacred, like it's the answer to every question. But freedom without purpose is just another kind of prison, Elara. Trust me. I know. Then maybe we're both meant to be trapped, I said. Just in different cells. I turned and walked into the forest before he could respond, before I could see his reaction, before the treacherous part of me that ached at leaving him could override my determination. The bond stretched between us, growing tauter with every step I took, creating a physical pain in my chest that made breathing difficult. My wolf was howling inside, thrashing against the cage of my will, demanding we go back, demanding we accept our mate. But I kept walking. Through the pain, through the tears that were now flowing freely down my face, through the horrible certainty that I was making either the bravest or stupidest decision of my life, and I wouldn't know which until it was far too late to change it. Behind me, I heard Dante's voice, quiet but carrying through the forest with supernatural clarity, "Run if you must." But this isn't over, Elara Moonvale. The bond won't let it be over. I didn't answer. I just shifted, letting my wolf take control, and ran. 3 days. I managed 3 days before he found me. I'd been careful, more careful than I'd ever been in my life. I'd masked my scent using every trick I knew, had avoided main roads and packed territories, had kept my wolf suppressed as much as possible to minimize the bond's pull. I'd thought I was being clever, thought I'd managed to slip away clean. I should have known better. You don't escape an alpha king through cleverness. Not when he can feel you through a bond you both hate and can't sever. I'd made camp in a small cave overlooking a river, far enough from any known packlands that I'd thought I was safe. The sunset was painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, beautiful and indifferent to my suffering. I was trying to eat dried meat that tasted like ash in my mouth when I felt him. Not heard, not saw, but felt his presence like a change in air pressure before a storm. Dante stepped out from the tree line, looking like he'd walked through hell to get there. His clothes were torn, mud-stained. His hair was disheveled, hanging loose around his face instead of tied back like he usually wore it. But those golden eyes were as intense as ever, fixed on me with predatory focus. "You're persistent," I said, forcing my voice to stay level even though my heart was trying to pound out of my chest. "I'll give you that. Did you really think I wouldn't come after you?" His voice was rough, strained in a way I hadn't heard before. "Did you think I would just let you disappear? I hoped you'd respect my choice. Your choice to run away from everything we could be together? No, Elara. I don't respect that choice. I think it's cowardice dressed up as independence." The words stung more than they should have. Cowardice. I stood, anger flooding through me hot and welcome, because it was easier than the confusing mess of other emotions the bond kept trying to force on me. You think it takes a coward to walk away from comfort and security? To choose uncertainty over the gilded cage you were offering? I think it takes a coward to run instead of fight for what you want, Dante shot back. You claim you want to matter on your own terms, to make your own choices, to shape your own destiny. But the moment the universe presents you with something challenging, something that might require you to actually engage instead of just reject, you bolt. That's not strength, Elara. That's fear. I'm not afraid of you. I know. You're afraid of yourself. Afraid of what you might feel if you stopped running long enough to actually examine this bond. Afraid that maybe, just maybe, accepting it wouldn't mean losing yourself. It would mean finding yourself. I laughed, harsh and humorless. That's beautiful poetry, Dante. Really touching. But it's still bullshit. I know exactly what I'd be finding, a future as your accessory, your support system, your pretty little Luna who smiles and nods and never causes trouble. I've seen it. I've watched it happen to others. And I won't let it happen to me. Then don't. He moved closer and I retreated, maintaining distance between us because I could feel the bond strengthening with proximity, could feel my resistance weakening. Don't let it happen. Be the Luna who doesn't fade into the background. Be the woman who changes what the position means. You have the strength for it, Elara. I've felt it. I know exactly how strong you are, how fierce, how absolutely unwilling to bend. Use that. Channel it into something constructive instead of just running away. Why do you even want me? The question burst out before I could stop it, raw and vulnerable in a way that made me hate myself. There were 11 other girls at that ceremony. Any of them would have accepted the bond gratefully, would have been the perfect, compliant Luna you could mold however you wanted. Why pursue someone who doesn't want you? Why not just let me go and find someone easier? Dante was silent for a long moment, studying me with an intensity that made me want to squirm. Then he said, because easy doesn't mean right. Those other women would have accepted the position, yes. They would have been grateful and compliant, and everything you fear becoming. And I would have spent the rest of my life with a partner who never challenged me, never pushed me, never made me question my own assumptions. I would have been comfortable but alone. Is that what you think I want? Companionship without connection? Partnership without passion? I don't know what you want, I admitted. I don't know you. Then let me tell you. He took another step forward, and this time I didn't retreat, held my ground even though everything in me was screaming to either run or close the distance completely. I want a mate who sees me as a person, not just a position. I want someone who will call me out when I'm wrong, who will fight for what they believe in even if I disagree, who will make me better by refusing to let me settle for less than my best. I want partnership in the truest sense, two people who make each other stronger, who challenge each other, who choose each other every day even when it's difficult. And I felt all of that potential in you, Elara. In those few seconds when the bond formed, I felt your strength, your passion, your absolute unwillingness to compromise yourself. And I thought, finally, someone who could stand beside me as an equal. My throat was tight, eyes burning with tears I refused to shed. Pretty words again. But words are easy. Following through is hard. You say you want an equal, but the fundamental structure of the bond makes equality impossible. You're the alpha. I would be your mate. That dynamic is inherently unbalanced. Only if we let it be. How? I demanded, frustration making my voice sharp. How do we overcome something written into our biology, into the ancient magic that created the bond in the first place? You can say we're equals all you want, but when it comes down to actual decisions, actual power, the alpha's word is law. That's how pack hierarchy works. That's how it's always worked. Then maybe it's time for that to change. Dante's voice was quiet, but there was steel underneath. Maybe you're right that the old ways create imbalance. Maybe having Luna be a symbolic position instead of one with real authority is a mistake that needs correcting. But that can't happen if you run. It can only happen if you stay and fight to make it different. Why should that be my fight? Why should I have to stay in a situation that's fundamentally wrong just for the privilege of maybe, possibly, if everything goes perfectly, changing it into something tolerable? That's not fair, Dante. That's asking me to sacrifice my present for a hypothetical future that might never come. You're right, he said, and the admission surprised me enough that I just stared at him. It's not fair. Nothing about this is fair. You didn't choose the bond, didn't choose me, didn't ask to be put in this position. And I'm asking you to accept it anyway, to take a chance on something uncertain and potentially painful because I have to believe, that what we could build together would be worth the risk. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm being selfish, trying to keep you here when letting you go would be kinder. He turned away, shoulders slumping in a way that looked wrong on someone who always carried himself with such perfect authority. I'll stop pursuing you, he said quietly. If that's truly what you want, I'll let you go. The bond will hurt for both of us, but we'll learn to live with it. You can have your freedom, Elara. I won't take it from you. It was everything I'd wanted. Permission to leave, to disappear, to live my life on my own terms without the weight of the bond or the role of Luna crushing down on me. I should have felt relief, triumph, vindication that I'd finally made him understand. Instead, I felt hollow. You'd really let me go? I heard myself ask. Just like that. Not just like that, Dante said without turning around. It would kill me. Slowly, over years, feeling you out there living a life I'm not part of, knowing I had a mate and lost her because I couldn't give her what she needed. But yes, if your freedom matters more than being with me, then I'll let you have it. Because forcing you to stay would just prove you were right about everything, that the bond is a cage, that I see you as property instead of a partner, that accepting it means losing yourself. And I won't do that to you. I won't be the reason you hate yourself. The bond, that thing I'd been fighting against since the moment it formed, was screaming at me. Not with words, but with emotion, with sensation, with absolute certainty that walking away now would be the biggest mistake of my life. And for the first time, I let myself actually listen to what it was trying to tell me. It wasn't showing me submission or loss of self or any of the things I'd feared. It was showing me possibility. Two people, strong and independent, choosing to intertwine their lives not because fate demanded it, but because they wanted to. Partnership that made both parties stronger rather than diminishing either. A future where I could be both Luna and Elara, where the position enhanced rather than erased my identity. Was it real, or was it just the bond manipulating me, showing me what I wanted to see to ensure I stayed? I didn't know. And that uncertainty was terrifying. But for the first time, I was willing to admit that maybe, just maybe, my fear had been making me blind to real possibilities. That my determination to avoid one kind of trap might be leading me straight into another kind, the trap of isolation, of never letting anyone close enough to truly know me, of confusing freedom with loneliness. I don't know if I can do this, I whispered. Dante turned back to face me, and the raw emotion in his eyes made my chest ache. Neither do I, he admitted. I've never had a mate before. Never had someone who could see through all the authority and hierarchy to the person underneath. I don't know how to balance being alpha with being a partner. I'll probably make mistakes. I'll probably fall back on old habits and assumptions. But I want to try it, Lara. I want to try to be what you need while you figure out how to be what you need. Together. What if it doesn't work? My voice cracked. What if we try and it's still everything I feared? What if I lose myself anyway? Then you leave, he said simply. I can't force you to stay, can't force the bond to hold if you truly reject it. But at least you'll know. At least you'll have tried instead of spending the rest of your life wondering. He was right. I hated that he was right, but denying it would be lying to myself, and I'd done enough of that already. Running away guaranteed loneliness and regret. Staying guaranteed nothing except difficulty and uncertainty. But at least with staying, there was a chance. A possibility. A door that remained open instead of slamming shut forever. I need conditions, I said finally. If I stay, if I even consider trying this, things have to be different from how they've traditionally been. Name them. I want real authority as Luna. Not symbolic. Not decorative. I want to be involved in actual pact decisions, actual governance. I want my voice to carry weight in council, want my opinions to matter beyond how they support or contradict yours. Done, Dante said immediately. What else? I want time. I'm not accepting the bond fully, not completing the mating right away. We do this slowly, learn each other, figure out if we can actually work together before we make it permanent. He hesitated at that, and I could feel through the bond that the idea of delayed completion hurt him. But he nodded. How much time? I don't know. As much as it takes for me to feel certain instead of terrified. That's fair, he agreed, though his voice was tight. Anything else? If I decide it's not working, if I reach a point where I genuinely believe I'm losing myself instead of finding partnership, you let me go. No arguments, no pursuing me, no trying to convince me I'm wrong. You accept my decision, and we figure out how to break the bond as cleanly as possible. This time his hesitation was longer, pain flashing across his features. But finally, slowly, he nodded. If that's what you truly need, then yes. I won't hold you against your will. I studied his face, looking for any sign of deception or manipulation. But all I saw was sincerity mixed with hope and fear, emotions that probably mirrored my own. Okay, I said quietly. Okay, we can try. But Dante, I meant what I said about my conditions. If this is going to work, if I'm going to stay, things have to be genuinely different. Not just in private, but publicly. I won't be a figurehead Luna who smiles pretty for the pack while having no real power. You'll have power, he promised. As much as you're willing to take. I meant it when I said I want a partner, Elara. Someone who makes me better. Someone who isn't afraid to challenge me when I need challenging. You can be that person. You already are. We'll see, I said, because I wasn't ready to believe him fully, wasn't ready to trust that this could actually be different from everything I'd feared. But I was willing to try. Willing to take the risk, to walk back into the situation I'd run from and see if maybe, just maybe, there was a way to be Luna without losing Elara in the process. Dante closed the distance between us slowly, giving me time to retreat if I wanted to. I didn't. When he was close enough to touch, he raised his hand to my face again, cupping my cheek with surprising gentleness. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for giving this a chance. For giving us a chance." The bond hummed between us, warm and insistent, urging me to lean into his touch, to close the final distance, to accept fully what fate had tried to force on me. I resisted, but not as violently as before. This was my choice now. My decision to stay, to try, to see if the future the bond kept promising could actually exist. "Don't make me regret it," I said. "I'll do my best not to." He smiled, small and uncertain in a way that made him look younger, more vulnerable. "Though I should warn you, I'm probably going to mess this up sometimes. The whole treating you as an equal thing doesn't come naturally to an alpha who's spent his entire life making unilateral decisions." "Then I'll call you out when you mess up," I said. "Loudly and repeatedly until you get it right. I'm counting on it." His thumb brushed across my cheekbone, the touch sending warmth spiraling through the bond. "Come back with me. Not to complete the mating, not to become Luna in the traditional sense. Just come back and let's figure this out together." I took a deep breath, committing to a decision I'd been fighting against since the moment the bond formed. "Okay," I said. "Let's go home." The word felt strange in my mouth, foreign and terrifying and somehow right all at once. Home. Not a place or a cage or a prison sentence, but a person. A partnership. A possibility I was finally brave enough to explore. We walked back through the forest together, not touching but close enough that I could feel his presence beside me, could feel the bond settling into something less frantic now that we were moving in the same direction instead of pulling apart. My wolf was practically purring, content in a way she hadn't been since the ceremony. I didn't know if this would work. Didn't know if Dante could actually follow through on his promises, if I could learn to be Luna without losing myself, if we could build the kind of partnership that seemed to only exist in stories. But for the first time since fate had decided our future, I was willing to find out. And maybe that willingness, that openness to possibility instead of just fear, was the actual first step toward freedom. Not running from connection but choosing it. Not avoiding vulnerability but embracing it. Not confusing isolation with independence. The path ahead was uncertain, probably painful, definitely difficult. But I was walking it by choice now. My choice. And that made all the difference. Did you feel that connection? What would you do if you were in her shoes? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more dramatic, heart-pounding stories. Where are you watching from? I want to know. Your thoughts matter to me.